Hello, everyone. Good morning to all. Thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Ahmet. I am the Regional Pre-Sales Manager in Barikat Cybersecurity based in Doha, Qatar. We really appreciate taking your time today to join us, transforming employees into Cybersecurity-Aware region session. We had really great webinars so far at different platforms, and it will continue for later schedules. We will continue to inform you for following events through email and social media notifications. Please continue to follow us from our social accounts, which will be shared after webinar. We hope you can join those webinars. If you want, this session will be recorded for on-demand purposes, and so the link will be shared for unable to join registered users and the customer as well. You're welcome to catch if you might have some missing parts. Also, we are expecting from you inviting your colleagues and share this content as valuable asset for utilizing as well. Today, this webinar will be shared session. We are here as Barikat Cybersecurity and Keepnet Labs. Very soon, our special panelist, James Baker, board advisor of Keepnet, and the Ozan Ucar, co-founder of Keepnet, will be on stage. And I will hand over to them for Keepnet solution details. They will present an open discussion on current trend landscape, what is the attack lifecycle, and how we can transform our employees into cybersecurity-aware agents and how to measure it. Before handing over to Ozan, there is some housekeeping notes here. Today's session will be in 3 different sections. The first part will be Keepnet market analysis and the solution part around, it will take 30 minutes, followed with a live demo around 15 minutes, and we reserved the 10 minutes Q&A session at the end. Ozan and James will answer your question in this session. If you type the chat box for your question, I will moderate them during the session, or we will answer them at the Q&A part. Yes, at this stage, let's get started. Ozan, we're so pleased to have enjoyed today with you. I am going to hand over to you for the real presentation. Stage is yours.
Sure. Thank you for this great introduction, Ahmet. Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Ozan Ucar. I'm CEO of the Keepnet Labs, and I'm based in London, United Kingdom. I'm going to talk about how to transform your employees into cyber-aware agents. My agenda will be threat landscape, how to train your staff against threats, precautions and preventions, how to address Keepnet solutions to transform your staff. Let's talk about the phishing. Phishing is an attack vector that cyber criminals use it mainly for identity theft, which they manipulate users to hand over their personal and sensitive information. It is sort of social engineering attack which is mainly initiated via email, and 95% of successful attacks on corporations are based on phishing attacks. What are phishing trends today? To find a solid answer to these questions, our team anonymously assessed over 410,000 results of phishing emails around the world in 2019. That belongs to our on-cloud customers and evaluated the departments and industries that are vulnerable to the phishing attacks. According to our statistics, 42% of the phishing messages were opened by the target across all campaigns, and 32.09% went to click the malicious attachment or link. 12.71% submitted their information, and those enabled to attack to succeed, which was around 12.87% in the previous year. So what we see here is your company can be at risk against a phishing attack if it successfully delivers into your network at any time. Let's have a look at one of the most important parts of the Keepnet Phishing Trends Report 2020, department analysis. What are the most vulnerable departments in your organization, you think, guys? Here is what we have discovered. Employees in quality management and health, purchasing, administrative, and legal internal control departments are the most likely to disclose information requested in phishing emails. These departments were again in top 3 departments who submitted their information in the previous year. These statistics prove that specific departments are more inclined to share sensitive information. These departments need to pay more attention due to their positions. One of the interesting things in this picture is IT department for me. Normally, we expect that employees in IT department are most well-educated people against cyber threats. But we have seen that employees, even in IT departments, can be victim of email-based attacks. That's really interesting.
At this point, Ozan, I want to inform our participants. The Keepnet Labs released a report, phishing trends reports recently. It's very useful and fruitful reports. And for our participants, if they want to look these reports, they can download it from the Keepnet Labs website. And in this report, it is showing as the almost 95% of successful attacks on the corporations are based and starting with phishing attacks. What is the reason why the phishing is so effective?
Sure. It's very easy to launch a phishing attack by criminals. Most of the criminals doesn't need to have technical expertise about cyber attacks. That's the first reason they use phishing attacks. The second reason is that most of the existing solutions, cybersecurity solution for enterprise, are not easily detect and block email-based attacks like phishing, fraud, etc. And the people can be easily manipulated by email, because everyone uses email daily, and people who work busy, hard in their daily operation can easily miss fake email and then click install any malicious content in the email.
Yes,
that's the reason we believe phishing attack is successfully attack in the cyber attack lifecycle.
Yeah, a lot of people refer to it as it's easier to hack the human than to hack the servers directly.
Yes, you're right.
Right, I'm going to the next slide of mine. We also evaluated phishing threats on industry basis, and here is the results. In terms of submitting credentials or sharing information, organization in apparel and accessories, which equal to retail, consulting, security and community exchange, typically stock exchange industry, education and holdings remain in the top 5 sectors which are vulnerable to phishing attacks. However, organizations in the electronics, call centers, accounting, legal and cargo handling are the most unlikely to share their data to cyber criminals. So, conclusion, what we have learned from Phishing Trends Report 2020. We have revealed that the key departments that access most of the sensitive information are more vulnerable to phishing attacks. Moreover, organizations that deal with email every day with instance frequency have problems in identifying phishing attacks like consulting, technology, financial services, and transportation companies. 1 in 3 employees are likely to click links in phishing emails or download attachment that may lead to silent installation of malware or ransomware, which is very critical. 1 in 8 are likely to share information requested in phishing emails. Revealing credentials may cause intellectual property and data theft, and if often the first stage of a major cyber attack. Now I will talk about another threat which is dominating today's business landscape. The coronavirus pandemic has been increasing tremendously and disrupting the global health at large extent. In addition to the damages the economics, social and political systems. While each of us certainly hopes that coronavirus won't become a major health event in part of the world, the reality is that businesses are already considering every contingency plan with a close eye towards avoid serious disruption of their operations and business. The people at large scale are compelled to work remotely, and doing so have made them rely heavily on remote communication and digital tools. Hackers have used the disruption created by the coronavirus pandemic to target people and to steal both personal and business information from them by posing as trustworthy figures using phishing attacks. Attackers try to compromise remote users' credentials and their computer device, almost every digital devices, using various COVID-19 pandemic scenarios. And remote working platforms were targeted by hackers. Video conferencing platform Zoom, for example, has been attacked by criminals many times. That was the last presentation of mine, and I would like to thank you all you guys for listening to me. And I'm going to pass you to James Baker for life cycle of email-based attacks and measures against them. I'd be happy to answer your question if you have.
Actually,
good afternoon.
Before starting James, please use the chat box for all participants to ask question. There is some question came to chat box. I will collecting them. Maybe later on we will raise them to you for getting answers. Please continue, James.
Great, thanks Ahmet, and thank you Ozan for the introduction and the covering off the phishing trends report. So yeah, good morning everybody. My name is James Baker. I'm a board advisor at Keepnet Labs. I'm going to share screen in a moment. Let's just switch where we are. Okay, hopefully you can all see my screen now. So I'd like to, yeah, you can see it. Okay, great, perfect. So I'm going to discuss and explain protecting your organization against phishing attacks primarily and email-based attacks in general. To start with, the first thing we need to consider is understanding the email attack life cycle. So each attacker will go through essentially 4 phases. They start by planning an attack. This is where they're researching the organization to develop that attack. They're looking at who your key people are, who might be vulnerable, which departments are likely to be most at risk from attack. The second phase of an attack is where the attacker will then launch that attack to look to penetrate your email infrastructure. You need to have sufficient tests and controls in place in order to mitigate those attacks. Unfortunately, attackers will still manage to compromise the inbox. They will reach the inbox with some of their attacks, and therefore we become to rely primarily on the users, your end users, as that particular malicious attack has bypassed your technical controls. In order to do this, we need to think about moving our users from essentially being unaware to being aware of cyber attacks to becoming active defense and exhibiting active defense behaviors. And at this stage of compromise, data loss is pretty inevitable. So again, organizations need to really consider how they can respond rapidly to incidents, primarily on an automated basis to try to limit and contain the damage that can be caused. So in terms of measuring how cyber aware your staff are against threats, we need to start by understanding our users' behaviour. Now, there is a direct link between cybersecurity behaviours and personality traits in your users. Some users will be more likely to click on malicious links and provide company information. But unfortunately, that shows a lack of knowledge, i.e. training and awareness, or it could be caused by carelessness or potentially gross negligence, which is quite considerably worse. It's important that we also identify that users can be excellent, actively aware cyber defenders for our business, and they will demonstrate behaviours that are responsible, well-informed, and actively look to block and defend the business's data. The ultimate goal of any cybersecurity training program is to develop sustained behavioural change, and a key part of that is breaking habits and forming better habits. We need to consistently reinforce the importance of cybersecurity and reward employees for changing their behaviour. We're looking to identify and develop a culture of cybersecurity across your organisation. Developing these skills and habits will do good for not just your organisation, but the users' personal information security practices. So in terms of behaviours that we need to measure, there are certain behaviours we need to measure and stop, and certain behaviours we need to measure and start or continue to do. So in order to consider this, we need all users to stop clicking all links. We need to stop them from opening all attachments on an email. And we need them to start checking for indicators of malicious content or compromise. And these indicators can be trained, they can be trained in identifying these indicators, and it becomes second nature for users to check those things prior to clicking links or opening attachments. Better still, we need to force users to report suspicious emails to the correct their team within the organisation to investigate further. It's not good enough just to ignore, because although, as Ozan pointed out, the average number of users within an organisation is around 12% that enter their credentials, that could mean that 82% have essentially, 88% have essentially deleted the email and ignored it. But had more of those users reported, we could have reduced that number significantly. And thirdly, users need to be using two-factor authentication and password managers wherever possible. Good passwords, sort of hygiene and cybersecurity hygiene is key in staying ahead of attacks. Data will be compromised, and it will be compromised again. There are plenty of examples of major data breaches out there in the market. Unfortunately, if the user is recycling passwords and using the same passwords for both personal and corporate domains, we're going to continuously see breaches occurring and being successful due to this nature. Just looking at the questions there. Okay, they're all separate. Okay, so in order to protect our business, what precautions and preventative measures can we take? Well, we need to break bad habits. In order to protect our companies need to focus on two strategies simultaneously: habit formation and habit disruption. There are many healthy cybersecurity habits that companies want to encourage. There are plenty of unhealthy habits that we need to break. We need to turn education into fun. One of the main reasons for failure of cybersecurity programs is that the training element is an afterthought for many companies. The check-the-box exercise, or essentially for compliance purposes, and most employees forget almost immediately what they've been trained in. Training must be engaging, and whilst users are learning, they should be having fun. Storytelling and short animation videos can be a great help for this. Don't scare and be aware of cybersecurity. Again, organisations shouldn't use security programs to scare users into the dangers of cybercrime, and instead we need to encourage users to make them more aware of how they can protect themselves online. Knowledge is a much better defence than fear, so businesses should focus on raising awareness on how to stay safe. we need to also consider trying to create a culture of security for your company. A security culture is the fulfillment of the day-to-day duties in alignment with the organization's security policies. From a security culture, when a security culture is sustainable, it really transforms security from a one-time event into a life cycle that generates security returns forever. And finally, another key consideration is ensuring that we perform continuous awareness and we don't break the chain. What we mean by that is it's not good enough to just train users once a year in a compliance nature, tick the box exercise. We need to be considering how we can train and reinforce the messages all year round through the entire workforce and use a smart adaptive methodology to do this. And the longer we keep an effective security program running, the better employees respond when faced with phishing attacks, minimizing risk and keeping your organization ahead of the curve. Now, we've seen significant results in some of our customers that have been very committed to a very robust and regular training program. Their rates of breach of users that enter credentials is down as low as 1.5% to 2% of their organisation. It's way below the standard, and also significantly better from a risk perspective. So what I'd like to do next is show you a short demo of Keepnet and just how simple it is to actually use the system in order to launch a phishing simulation. The Keepnet platform has been developed to address the life cycle of email-based attacks. Whilst there are 5 key features, which are, first of all, let me switch to the screen and we'll go through that in just a moment. Apologies. Okay, so you should all see my screen now. This is essentially the homepage, the landing page for the Keepnet platform. We have some high-level statistics. The platform has been built over 5 core features that mimic and copy the attacker's life cycle. So when attackers are planning an attack, we provide threat intelligence. When they launch an attack, we have an email threat simulator. At the compromise phase, this is where the email has reached the inbox and we're relying on users. We provide phishing simulation and awareness education and training. We also provide access to many third parties that produce training as a standalone core business. That way, organizations can choose the most relevant and appropriate training for them and their users. I'm going to show you an example from Ninja shortly. And finally, at compromise phase, where data loss is inevitable, we have an automated incident response in order to respond to emails that are received in the course of business that are reported as suspicious. So, first of all, to launch this phishing simulation, you will enter our phishing simulation scenarios component. In here, you'll find many templates and examples that can be used and customized. The one I'm going to select will be this WebEx password reset. We can edit it and we can create subdomains on the fly. You can create attachment style attacks and really customize the experience that's going to be much more useful and relevant to your users. But in order to launch, I'm going to use the fast launch option. Give the name of the test. We're going to add the training content. And I understand we have friends from our Arabic speaking friends on this call. So we have lots of our content translated into Arabic. So I'm going to select this copy as an example. What this means, the training that we've selected here is that is remediation training. So if a user clicks or enters their data, it'll automatically launch the training on the screen, and you'll see that in a moment. Then we're going to select a training group, and this will be any of your Active Directory groups that will automatically map in, or they can be created manually. And hit launch. So if I flip to inbox in a moment. Okay, so here we have the phishing email that's been received. It appears to come from info@webex.com. Looks relatively genuine. If we click a link, it then takes us to this login page where it's looking to capture the credentials of the user. So it doesn't really matter what we enter in here. The user should be able to spot some of the telltale signs. So the actual domain is swifttransaction.com, which is not Cisco or WebEx. We've created this subdomain in order to confuse a user, which is a very common tactic used by attackers. There are discrepancies in the font, which again should indicate to a user this doesn't look quite right. If they hit next, the training will automatically load. What I will do is I'm going to play a minute or two of a couple of minutes of this Ninja training video to give you an idea and a feel for what this content is about. At a very high level, Ninja are a US-based content provider. They're #1 on Gartner Peer Insights. They produce a video or an episode every 30 days, and that episode translates to a real breach that's happened, so something that we're likely to be aware of in the news. This particular copy is from a business email compromise attack that happened at the London Stock Exchange. So I'm going to press play. Ahmet, could you just confirm you hear the sound from the training?
Yeah. Yes, I can hear.
Great.
The UK government is investigating whether a recent outage at the London Stock Exchange was caused by a cyber attack. The outage was its worst in 8 years.
54 for 3,000 shares. 2,000 trades. 59. 59. No. 63 for 4,000. 63 for 4,000. Give me 63 for 4,000. I'm out. 6,000 trades. 6,063. Is this a cyber attack?
Nation-state hacktivist? What, cyber terrorist?
Hackers have shut down the market. They've shut it down.
I need to know how this happened. I'm due to brief the Prime Minister in less than an hour. Someone tell me something.
The investigation is
ongoing. I know. What do we know so far?
At the present, everything's pointing back to a BEC attack?
Business email compromise. Who was it that got hacked?
It was me. They hacked my email account 8 months ago.
Let me make sure I have this right. The CEO of one of the largest stock exchanges on the planet got hacked? Oh, this should go over well.
Believe me, I know.
Well, I'm gonna need details.
The hacker stayed dormant in my account, watching and learning everything I do. Eventually, the hacker, pretending to be me, sent our database administrator a falsified email straight out of my account.
In it, the hacker told the DBA that we hired a new contractor to help secure the servers that control trading, and to please set up an admin account for the new contractor so he could have admin access to the trading platform.
Didn't the DBA scrutinize the email like we're trained to do?
Yes, in fact, he did everything right. He checked the time the email was sent, 6:30 a.m., very normal for me. He scrutinized the grammar and use of language. It was very clearly my dialect with terms only I use. He also checked the internet headers to make sure the email was really coming from my account as opposed to being spoofed. The request could not have appeared to be any more legitimate.
Then I ask again, how did this happen?
Because even though everything looked proper, and even though the email said I would be away from my phone, he still should have called me anyway. And if he wasn't able to get a hold of me, he should have waited until we talked, no matter how long that might have taken.
Instead, the hacker, disguised as the contractor, went in and wreaked havoc on our software, setting a time bomb that executed 10 minutes into the trading day, and, as you know, halted trading that led to the 40% market drop.
Don't remind me.
At this point, all we can do is learn from our mistakes, which we are by retraining all our employees. Anytime you receive an email requesting you to grant access to sensitive data or to transfer funds or send any other highly confidential information over email, that you verify the source of the request, either by phone or in person, no matter how long it takes, even if it means missing a deadline.
Good. I'll be sure and tell that to the Prime Minister. Hopefully, he'll share your optimism.
Okay, so as you can see now, there are some summary of some of the key learning points from that particular episode. Hopefully that was interesting. You could see the style of this type of content. So back to the platform, in terms of measuring the user's performance. So we're looking for those key measurements that we discussed a moment ago. The platform will provide all of that data. So we'll see who received the email. In this case, it was only the one user, who opened the email, who clicked the link, and who submitted the form. We can then further drill down on that particular user and identify the browser and the IP address and the agent they were particularly using for additional statistics and information. We'll also then be able to see who submitted the form. And again, we can see it in plain text here, the username, and we deliberately blank out and obfuscate the password. And the key component that we're looking to identify is phishing reporting. So this is where a user has used the button within the inbox to report the email as suspicious. That's the key indicator for behavior that we want to drive and improve, as that's the real game changer for protecting your organization against phishing attacks. So I'd like to conclude the short demo there. I'm very happy to answer any questions or go further and cover off any other components that you may wish to discuss. Thank you.
Actually, I got some questions from participants.
Yeah.
I combine some similar question. The first question, maybe you can re-emphasize to how to measure of the awareness of employee for the phishing simulator. You are making reports and for details to follow up who will click on it. Could you please give this kind of details, because this question raised from our participant?
No problem. I think I can explain that. So yes, so essentially we capture all of the information about that particular phishing simulation. So that would be who clicked the link or who opened the email, who clicked the link, who completed, who entered data or credentials. If there's an attachment or macro attack, who opened the attachment. We also measure who reports the email as suspicious, which is the key behavior that we're looking to capture. If you have a group of users that click and enter data, you're able to very quickly and automatically create another group to then send those users training and remediation in order to train them on the things that they fell down on, and in the hope that will begin to change their behavior and develop that skill set for that particular employee. We can look at performance over time, KPIs on individual users, and give them a risk score as to how vulnerable they are to clicking links and entering data. And we can also compare results from training. And there's lots of different types of training and awareness products within the platform, from PowerPoint slides to videos to games and to posters and quizzes. The organizations and our customers are also able to upload their own content to the platform to deliver, which can then be customized and ensure that their users are getting a very customized and internal bespoke look and feel for the process. And the administrators can also then extract higher level information around the company's performance, looking at the last 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, etc., looking at key indicators over that period of time. Finally, you can integrate with the platform and extract all of the data out via an API in order to process it in other data analysis tools and toolsets you may have or be using.
So another question, James, is there any unique features in the solution when we are comparing the available other products? Could you tell us this kind of features?
Yeah, sure.
Uniquely hosting in Keepnet Labs?
So there's a few things really that I can sort of highlight. So first of all, our platform looks at that life cycle of an email-based attack. So we start by providing some threat intelligence, which is around credentials that have been compromised that belong to the organization. It's an early warning sign that an attacker may be researching your organization, ready for an attack. But it's something that you can then head off by pushing password change, password reset requirements. We can also test whether or not they map to the active LDAP passwords being used, in which case they obviously pose more risk. The second step of an attack is an email threat simulator. And we have competitors in that space too. I can see the couple on the chat there that were mentioned, but these companies do not provide this service. These are standalone businesses. So email threat simulator sends hundreds of malicious emails deliberately at a test inbox that you will run on a automated or a scheduled basis, which basically tests your email infrastructure, your security infrastructure, to determine what will bypass your current technical controls. This is again a really good test, a real test that will enable you then to close out those vulnerabilities. This is unique in comparison to the two firms that have been mentioned on the list. We then provide the phishing simulation and training. There are lots of providers that do this, but nevertheless, we have a view that the training content we produce is good, but we also make partnerships with other businesses and other training providers to provide you with choice. Choice is something that you don't get with some of those competitors. They will only provide their own content, which frankly after a year or two can become stale and something that your users essentially switch off from. We provide an on-premise version as well as SaaS, and again that is relatively unique. I don't believe those businesses provide an on-premise solution, which a lot of our banking customers find particularly useful, being very concerned with providing and using any SaaS type products. And finally, our automated incident response capability. It's a patent pending solution, and essentially any user reports an email as suspicious. It's automatically tested using third-party integrations to determine if it's malicious. This is all within about a minute or so of that user reporting. If it's determined that it is malicious, the system can automatically search all inboxes, discover where else it's gone, and then remove it from all of those inboxes.
May I add something here, James?
Yeah.
And our phishing reporter add-in, which is compatible with Outlook Desktop, Outlook Web Access, G Suite, does investigation on the user's inbox. We do not need to integrate our instant response capability with your Exchange server or any email server you have. The reason we are unique is Phishing Reporter has investigation capability on the user's inbox. That means if you would like to investigate an email on your organization, let's say you have 1,000 employees and you have got 1 million emails in last week. You can't investigate an email in your Exchange. That's gonna be a performance problem, and probably you will have lots of the trouble on the Exchange. If you have a look at the other vendors, our competitors, they are all need integration with Exchange or other email services. And Keepnet share this load on each user, and each user gets order from the Keepnet Labs server, then investigate, response back to the server. Would you like to add something here, James?
You know, I think that's good. And we're obviously happy to answer any other questions. I'm a details man. I start disappearing off. So yeah, please bring me back. Okay.
Another question at this point. How long does it take to implement it?
It's really, really quick. So in terms of the implementation steps, you just need to whitelist the IP addresses that we send the phishing simulations and training from. Upload your users, and we integrate with Active Directory, so that can be done automatically. And essentially, you'd be ready to go.
Good. And another good question came to us. You know, the lots of employees got different training campaign from their own company. And do you really think phishing simulating tools can prepare their staff against phishing attacks? Maybe they can assume this is the traditional, this is the training campaign. Do you have any suggestion or the way of working to differentiate between the phishing simulation tool and the learning, prepared learning materials sent by the companies?
Yeah, I think it's important to just you mustn't think about anything in a singular fashion. You can't think that phishing simulation can essentially solve the problem of phishing for the organisation, and it's only part of a wider tool set. We need to think about the attacker's life cycle, look to combat the attacker at each of the stages of excuse me, of that life cycle. When it comes to phishing simulation, it is definitely proven it's a very successful tool to raise awareness, but it needs to be followed up with quality training and you know, and information that the user can remember and internalize and apply next time. So back to that slide earlier that we talked about, it's starting and stopping those types of behaviors. Training is important, phishing simulation is important. These are all parts of a wider solution.
Yeah, you're right. This is the last question in my panelist section. You mentioned the email threat simulator. What do you think your email threat simulator different from other vulnerability scanners?
Ozan, would you like to explain that one?
Sure. Our email threat simulator has capability to detect or test all of your cybersecurity solution you have on your network, including on-spam, firewall, DLP, threat intelligence platform as well. Also, the system itself, email threat simulator, has the ability to check your misconfiguration, which is this capability doesn't have on our competitor as we see. The other thing is that in order to test all of your cybersecurity solution in your infrastructure, you don't need to install anything on your network. Only thing we need to test your infrastructure is an email address. If you provide us an email address, that is enough for us to test your infrastructure. You don't need to install any add-in in your network, any instance into your network, which can be a problem for your network and take you at risk. These are the most differentiation we have.
Okay. While listening to your response, I went through the question came from the chat box, and I tried to eliminate the same question. I believe this is the all different question I raised to you. If you want to add anything, because the all question has already responded by you, do you want to add anything, James or Ozan?
I don't think so. I think that's probably it. I mean, obviously we're happy to you know, follow up with any calls anyone might want and further deep dive in the tool and the product itself. Hopefully the statistics and please, yeah, please do feel free to download the full 2020 phishing report. Again, I'm sure Ahmet can provide the email address, the web address to do that. Yeah, and thank you everybody for your time.
Okay. Yeah, I'm okay with that. Thank you, everybody.
Actually, we will continue for the detailed section for specific areas. I want to summarize the today's session. Actually, how much technology investment have you accomplished so far, or how much technology team you have? The thing is, human is still one of the biggest security vulnerability factor within your organization, with your all different departments. Even for the IT teams can be catched by this kind of phishing threats. Today we try to show you how much this subject is important and how you can manage it with Keepnet solutions. I want to thank you all for your participation. We try to answer your question as much as we can. If you have any other question, please contact with us. We are happy to answer those questions. I want to thank you, Keepnet teams and the Barikat cybersecurity team, especially Ms. Sevinch and Mr. Ozan, because they support us a lot behind the scene. I hope to meet you again for following webinars. See you soon. Thank you very much. Keep safe and secure.
Thank you, everybody. Goodbye.
Thank you all.